This video is for doctoral candidates. Thank you for being here. This is Philip Espinosa. In this short video, I present some thoughts on being a doctoral candidate as it relates to creating knowledge. If you are working toward a doctorate, you are going to produce a significant amount of written content. You will write about your research problem. You will review and synthesize scholarship. You will identify and use theoretical and conceptual frameworks. You will choose a methodology. You will gather and analyze evidence. And eventually, you will present your findings, conclusions, and contribution in a dissertation. All of that work requires writing. Some might say a lot of writing. And yes, that writing is important. But the written product is a record of your work. It is not what we might call the work. The goal of doctoral education is thinking, learning, and knowledge creation. A doctoral candidate learns by developing the capacity to think and act as an independent scholar. And you develop that capacity by repeatedly doing the intellectual work of scholarship. You will identify a consequential problem and determine what is actually researchable. There are many interesting ideas out there, but not all interesting ideas are suitable for doctoral research. This requires you to understand the broader problem, determine what part of that problem can be investigated, as in where to focus, and for you to develop research questions so you can examine the problem or solutions for the problem. You will find and read scholarship. This is what we call the literature. This means reading the studies others have done deeply enough to understand the arguments other scholars have made. You will assess and understand the evidence they used to support their arguments. You will evaluate the methods they used, the assumptions they made, and you will give critical thought to areas where the work of other scholars agree or disagree, and you will consider competing perspectives. You will determine what is known, what may need to be known, and why the difference matters. You will connect concepts and ideas from the literature rather than simply summarize individual sources. That means looking across studies, theories, arguments, and evidence to identify patterns and relationships, meaning you will make connections. You will search for and choose theoretical and conceptual frameworks and learn how those choices provide boundaries for your project. A framework influences the questions you ask, what you pay attention to, the evidence you gather, and ultimately how you make sense of that evidence. Choosing a framework requires your scholarly judgment. You will make methodological decisions. You will determine what methodology and research design are appropriate for your problem and research questions. You will decide what the most appropriate population is so that you can engage with participants. This requires you to learn about and use techniques for sampling, data collection, analysis, validity, trustworthiness, and supporting the findings your data produces. And if that is not enough, you will learn to explain and defend those decisions. All of this must be documented, but the written documentation is a byproduct of your work. At the core, you are required to learn and apply knowledge. You will need to self-examine your work to recognize weaknesses, contradictions, alternative interpretations, and limitations. You will receive feedback from your chair, your committee, your peers, and other scholars, and you must use that feedback to reconsider and develop your thinking. That is an important part of doctoral learning. It is too easy to believe that the first thing you thought of was the best thought outcome and to resist advice to change or reconsider. You must develop your capacity to revise your thinking rather than simply revise the wording of something you wrote. Go after, what does this mean? And why did I make this choice? Throughout this process, you will struggle with some choices. For example, you must learn where and how to make scholarly judgments when there is more than one reasonable choice. Research regularly requires judgment. Why this choice and not another? Which literature matters most? Which framework provides the most useful lens? Which methodology fits the research problem? How should an unexpected finding be interpreted? How much confidence should you place in a particular conclusion? What claims are warranted by the evidence? You will learn to make those judgments and explain the reasoning and evidence that support them. As you make these decisions, document why you made them. Eventually, all of this intellectual work leads toward one of the defining expectations of your doctoral study, that of knowledge creation. You move from understanding what other scholars know to conducting research that allows you to make your own warranted contribution to knowledge or practice. The dissertation is a record of this work. Don't confuse documenting your work as the work. The work is your doctoral research project, and the dissertation is a written record of that project. That distinction is increasingly important because there are many ways to make the production of written content easier. Resources, editors, templates, technology, and generative AI can all support aspects of the work. The important question is what happens to the intellectual work? A resource can help you find scholarship. You still need to understand and evaluate it. A tool can help you organize information. You still need to determine how the ideas are connected. Someone can provide feedback on your methodology. You still need to understand why the methodology is appropriate and be able to defend your choices. Generative AI can help you develop written content. You still need to engage in the thinking and learning that the content represents. You will need to explain and defend it. A word of caution, do not let AI write content for you. A challenge with modern shortcuts is those shortcuts tend to remove us from the intellectual work. This can limit our opportunity to develop the knowledge, reasoning, and scholarly judgment that the work was intended to develop. Make sure you are not missing out on developing the knowledge you need to explain and defend your project. No shortcut can help with that. So, throughout your doctoral program, keep asking yourself, am I doing the intellectual work? Am I wrestling with the problem? Am I engaging deeply with the literature? Am I making connections? Am I evaluating different perspectives? Am I making and defending scholarly decisions? Am I interpreting the evidence? Am I reconsidering my thinking when I encounter new evidence or critique? Am I developing my own scholarly judgment? And am I able to explain the contribution I am making? The answers to these questions are absolutely critical because completing a doctorate involves much more than producing a written document, the dissertation. You are developing the capacity to think as an independent scholar. Thinking, learning, and knowledge creation are the goal of doctoral study. Thanks for listening to this short video. Invest time in your thinking every day. Until next time.